Bike share and Nextbike, Robert Henderson. Hi.
Good morning. I have my colleague Erin Jackson here today, who was part of the crowdfunding campaign for Christchurch Bike Share. So, Mayor Dalziel and councillors, thank you for your time this morning. We're presenting today regarding public bike share, but more broadly public transport provisions in the long-term plan and the scope for new public transport initiatives. Just talking about bike share, globally bike share systems have become an integral part of public transport networks, allowing for multimodal trips and the completion of the last kilometre of public transport trips. Successful systems have been implemented in cities of all sizes. However, central to their success is the integration with public transport networks through both funding and physical integration. Public bike share requires a similar level of funding support to other public transport modes, but fare box recovery and sponsorship can be combined to complete the funding mix. After talking about this idea for the last 2 or 3 years, we decided to get something on the ground. So late last year, a crowdfunding campaign was run, which successfully met its target with 450 individuals and Christchurch businesses supporting the project. Of note is the support of inner city employers, the press, SLI Systems, support from the Arts Centre, and also Countrywide Property, who have sponsored a 5th station in Victoria Street. This funding is being combined with a branding partnership with Spark, who are covering the operating costs. So in July, we're installing 5 stations on private land as part of a 2-year pilot. The first 30 minutes of every ride will be free, with an hour free for crowdfunding supporters. You can make multiple trips per day, and it's all about getting people exploring the inner city and trying the idea out. The focus of this pilot is to generate data and opinions on bike share as a future public transport option for the city. But it's very important, and I need to stress that this is not a scalable model. We cannot simply increase to a citywide system from this without local government and public transport funding, local government support and public transport funding. In the next 2 years, we hope to see the city have further discussion about this idea as people try it out firsthand. If there is no scope for public transport modes other than buses and the tram, then it makes these discussions that much more difficult. We note that public bike hire does feature in the Cycleways Activity Management Plan. However, we would suggest that this should actually be in the Public Transport Activity Management Plan, as it requires infrastructure investment and ongoing costs in the same way the provision of bus services do. Although our submission is not primarily about funding, I'm just going to put some indicative figures out there so we know sort of what we're talking about. So a Christchurch scheme with 300 to 350 bikes within the 4 AVs would involve around $2 million of initial infrastructure investment and face operating costs of around $500,000 per annum. But as mentioned, the council may only be part of this funding mix. That's not, it's more of a partnership with NZTA, ECAN and a branding partner. So just to finish, we knew this idea had public and business support, and the crowdfunding campaign has demonstrated this and meant that we can get this pilot up and running. But in all my discussions, it's become very apparent that to get this as part of the future Christchurch, it's going to take strong political support from within this room to advance it further. So thank you for your time and welcome any questions about that.
Pauline?
Thanks very much, Rob. I'm sorry, can you please tell me what the capital cost was again? Run that figure past me.
Yes, it's around $2 million, and that was for a 300 to 350 bike system. That's excluding any sort of public street works that would be required. That's just for the stations and the bikes, but they are solar powered. They can be placed pretty lightly in various places. So, yeah.
Yep. Glenn?
Yeah, thank you for this. I was quite taken with this submission in a recent overseas trip, along with a lot of our colleagues who have seen this before. We saw a lot of these bike share schemes in some of the bigger cities next to public, transport hubs such as subways, etc. So,
yes.
Do you envisage you could, say, in the public sphere, locate something next to the new bus terminal as a pilot, just to see what the uptake is, and
yes,
maybe we could look at something in the next?
Yeah, the way we've looked at that in terms of timing with the new transport interchange. So we've got 5 sites at the moment. One of those is not the transport interchange, but we can quite easily move within the next 2 years, and we will have to for some of the sites as construction happens. So we'd like to. It's just been a little in this sort of too hard basket at the moment, but certainly within the next 2 years, we'd like to look at that because it is the fit that we're looking at long term.
Yep. Paul.
Thanks, Rob. Great presentation. Look. There are some bike share schemes throughout the world that actually are fully self-funded and self-sustainable. Have you looked at other models throughout around the world?
Yeah, the only model I'm actually aware of that's, well, a city that's fully privately funded is New York, and that's because, and I may be wrong there because there's hundreds of thousands of them, but New York for Citibank as a branding partner, that is worth quite a lot to them. You obviously have your branding all over Manhattan. And in actual fact, that's got into a little bit of financial difficulty within the last couple of years. So we can't see a model working in New Zealand where there is no public transport or local government support. It certainly hasn't. Looking at it in the Auckland context, they haven't been able to find a way to make that work. So yeah, I don't quite see it working in New Zealand necessarily as a 100% private thing. And cities where you have to pay, from the first minute and it's quite costly, usage drops right off. It's really about integrating it as part of your public transport trips. You could hop off the bus, use your Metro card to use the bike for the last part of your journey, and it's all one journey. So yeah, there are different models, but this is how we see it.
There is a model I've seen that does, I should send you the link to it, so I'll just make
Okay, they're great, yeah.
Thanks.
I've just wanted to ask a question and then I'll go to Phil. Just in relation to cycle helmets, given the 30k within the central city, do you think that we could work a central city component that didn't require helmets to be used there or in the Hagley Park?
Sure. Yeah. So we're in
adults.
terms of the bike share system, we're using the only system in the world that's successfully included helmets. So all our bikes come with helmets,
Yeah.
and for the most part, that works really well. On a personal level, I'd like to see that. That would be really great. We've had some discussions around that recently, and said that even if there was helmet free, we probably still would provide helmets from a liability point of view. But yeah, my personal view on that is that would be really great. And yeah, certainly with the slow speeds and that sort of thing in the core, I think that'd be a really good fit. Yeah.
Yep.
Feedback from the community would also be that would be something that would be really attractive for users as well.
As a matter of choice. Yeah.
As a matter of choice, yeah.
Yep, great. Phil and then Yanni.
Thanks, Rob. I've got a couple of questions. One is, I'm just wondering if you've got any connections with the recycle group in the inner city as a way of making it sustainable. That's the first one. And the other one, question I've got really is, like you said, look, can you get some political support? And clearly there's a lot of support, say, at this table and other tables, like when you present at ECAN. And it's really how can you progress your project really by having further conversations rather than only kind of like. Yeah.
Sort of over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of discussions. I've had discussions with people and from all organisations all around the city. I think it sort of comes down to having people who are in a position to say, let's explore it a wee bit further. And I haven't sort of found that. I think that's just the public transport, set up in Christchurch at the moment. There's just so many organisations and people involved, and it's just difficult to navigate. In terms of involving the recycling group, so Nextbike in Glasgow has done something like that, where they've involved a community group who do the maintenance of the bikes, the sort of overhauling. I'm certainly looking at that as an option for the pilot as well, and longer term, that would be a really good fit. Yeah.
Are you linked with the current group?
In terms of personal contacts, yes. Yeah.
Yanni?
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. Just wondered if you'd talk to Sarah. I mean, I know there was a question around the bus interchange, but given that all these anchor projects are generally under their control, have you talked to them about making provisions, say, at the Justice and Emergency Precinct, which has no parking for visitors, which would seem kind of a logical thing, and also about that cycleway access into the central city? I mean, I hear the message about no cycle helmets, but if I was cycling past the bus interchange with the faulty software system, I'd be really concerned not to have a helmet on. So, with the number of buses going past. So
yeah, there's certainly been discussions with Sarah and different people in different roles. There was discussions around the Avon River precinct and making space available. But where all this got to is having something on the ground that people can try firsthand and see was kind of the next step to kind of just making that case that much more compelling and getting people trying it out. So there hasn't been discussions in the last few months, but I've certainly had some previously around that. Yeah.
There's 35 seconds, so quick.
First of all, thank you very much for your honesty about the cost and the reality of it for the future. I've been a great supporter for a while, but to see it in action in New York, I'm absolutely convinced there has to be a way forward with it, because I've been run over almost 3 times by bikes in New York, and so it's, yeah, so thank you.
Certainly I'd encourage everyone later in the year when it's on the streets to try it out. I'll send you instructions on how that works and give it a go, but yeah, I just wanted to stress the point that it's a 2-year project, and going forward we need to have further discussions around that.
How's that for perfect? Well done. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good to see you.